Have you ever wondered if eating plants is as innocent as it seems? We often think of a vegan or vegetarian diet as the ultimate moral choice. No blood, no suffering, just life feeding on life in the most peaceful way possible. But what if that idea isn't as clean as we think? What if plants too pay a moral cost we choose to ignore? Stay until the end, because what you're about to hear might change the way you think about every bite of food you've ever taken. Let's start with something simple. Pain. We associate pain with animals, like with eyes that can look back at us, with cries, with fear. But scientists are discovering that plants might not be as passive as we once believed. They don't have brains or nerves, but they do have complex signaling systems. When a caterpillar chews on a leaf, the plant releases electrical signals that travel through its tissues at speeds similar to animal nerve impulses. Some even release chemicals that warn nearby plants, like silent screams we can't hear. They alter their chemistry, produce toxins, or call for help by attracting the enemies of their predators. In other words, plants react to harm. Now, does that mean they feel pain? That's the million-dollar question. Most scientists say not in the way animals do. There's no consciousness, no subjective experience. But here's the tricky part. We don't really know where consciousness begins and ends. It might not require a brain like ours. It might just require a system complex enough to respond to the world. And in that sense, plants qualify more than we'd like to admit. If something fights to survive, changes its behavior to avoid harm, and communicates danger, does that make it morally significant? Let's take it further. When you eat a salad, you're eating something alive. Something that was once growing, responding, and adapting. We just don't see the suffering because it doesn't look like ours. A carrot doesn't bleed red, a lettuce doesn't run away, but it's still a life that was ended. So maybe the moral question isn't just about what we kill, but how we justify it. Here's another layer to this moral puzzle. Ecosystems. When we farm plants on a large scale, we destroy countless animal habitats. Every soybean field, every wheat farm, every avocado plantation used to be a home for insects, birds, rodents, even deer. Agriculture is by far the biggest cause of habitat loss on Earth. That means millions of animals die every year. Not in slaughterhouses, but in combines, pesticides, and habitat collapse. Even the most plant-based diet relies on an invisible trail of animal death. So the moral cost of eating plants isn't just about the plants themselves. It's about everything that dies because of them. But wait, this doesn't mean we should stop eating plants, or that veganism is hypocritical. The real issue here is complexity. We want a clean moral story. This is right. That is wrong. But nature doesn't work that way. Every living thing survives by taking from something else. The line between predator and prey is blurry. Even a tree competes for sunlight, poisons its rivals with root chemicals, and strangles competitors. Life consumes life. Always has, always will. So maybe morality in nature isn't about avoiding harm, but about understanding it. Minimizing suffering where we can without pretending we can erase it. Let's think about this from a different angle. If plants are part of a larger self-balancing system, maybe the moral question isn't, should we eat them? But how should we treat the systems they belong to? Instead of asking whether it's wrong to pull a carrot from the ground, we could ask whether it's wrong to farm in ways that destroy the soil, poison the rivers, and erase forests. Because that's where the real harm lies. Not in the act of eating, but in the way we've industrialized life itself. There's also a spiritual side to this. Many indigenous cultures never separated plants and animals in moral terms. They saw both as living beings, different forms of consciousness within a shared web of existence. When they harvested, they gave thanks, acknowledged the exchange, and took only what was needed. It wasn't about guilt, it was about respect. Contrast that with how modern society eats. Packaged, processed, disconnected from the source. We don't see the field, the soil, or the destruction behind our food. And maybe that disconnect, not the eating itself, is the true moral cost. So what should we do with all this? Maybe the answer isn't to stop eating plants or animals, but to remember that every meal has a story, a cost. It's about being conscious of where our food comes from, supporting sustainable farming, reducing waste, and honoring the life that sustains us. The goal isn't purity, it's awareness. Because when we forget the cost, we become consumers of life without gratitude. And when we remember it, we become participants in a cycle that's older than morality itself. So next time you take a bite of that salad, maybe pause for a second. You're not just eating lettuce, you're part of a living network, a cycle of energy, a moral equation written into the DNA of everything alive. Life feeds on life. The question isn't whether that's right or wrong, it's whether we can learn to do it with grace. If this made you think differently about your next meal, make sure to like this video, and it really helps the channel grow. And tell me in the comments, do you think plants deserve moral consideration? Or is consciousness the only line that matters? I'll be reading your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and remember, awareness is the first step toward change.